In this video, I will tell you 2 witch stories that will make your blood run cold. So turn off the lights, turn up the volume, and join us to immerse ourselves in this creepy world. Our first story is entitled, The Witch of the Forest. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by woods, there was a lonely and mysterious old woman who lived in a hut in the heart of the forest. The villagers said she was a witch, that she made pacts with the devil and invoked dark forces. But despite their rumors, no one dared to go near her hut. One day, a young adventurer named Jorge decided to explore the forest and arrived at the old woman's hut. The door was ajar, and George went inside. But when he tried to get out, the door slammed shut and he was trapped. Suddenly, the old woman appeared before him. She was a tall, thin woman with wrinkled skin and a sinister smile. Jorge tried to escape, but the witch immobilized him with a strange magic and began to recite a spell. A dark mist began to surround the hut, and Jorge felt his body grow cold. The old woman had summoned the devil, and soon a dark and fearsome figure appeared before them. The devil offered George a deal. He would give him wealth and power in exchange for his soul. But George refused the offer and managed to escape from the hut. However, from that day on, strange things began to happen in the village. People were getting sick, crops were being ruined, and houses were burning down without explanation. Rumors of the witch and her pact with the devil spread throughout the village. One day, the old woman disappeared and, with her, the dark fog that covered the hut. But the tranquility did not last long, as people began to see strange lights in the forest and hear sinister laughter in the night. Some claimed to have seen the witch and the devil together in the forest, planning their next move. Others said that the old woman had left a legacy of curse and that the town was doomed. Years passed, and the town descended into chaos and darkness. No one dared to go into the forest, and the old woman's hut was abandoned. But, on full moon nights, the sound of sinister laughter could be heard, and the villagers knew that the witch and the devil still lurked in the shadows. To this day, it is said that those who dared to enter the forest never return, and that the old woman's curse is still in effect. It is believed that the witch continues to invoke the devil, and that together they conspire to take control of the world. But no one knows for sure if these stories are true, or if they are just legends of terror. But one day, a brave young girl named Stephanie decided to face her fears and go into the forest to discover the truth behind the town's legends. Stephanie didn't believe the stories of the witch and the devil, but she knew something strange was happening in the forest. With a map in hand and her backpack loaded with supplies, Stephanie began her trek to the old woman's cabin. The path was difficult and dangerous, but Stephanie was determined to go all the way. After hours of walking through the forest, Stephanie finally arrived at the witch's hut. The cabin was covered in cobwebs and looked abandoned, but Stephanie did not let her guard down. While exploring the inside of the cabin, Stephanie found an ancient book that was hidden on a shelf. The book was filled with strange symbols and spells, and appeared to be the witch's personal diary. Stephanie began to read the book carefully and discovered that the witch had invoked the devil to gain power and revenge against the villagers who had accused her of witchcraft. But she soon realized that the witch had lost control over the devil and that together they were conspiring to sow chaos and destruction in the world. Stephanie knew she had to do something to stop the witch and the devil. With the book in hand, Stephanie began to recite the spell she found inside, and suddenly, the cabin began to shake. The witch and the devil appeared before Stephanie, and began to attack her with their dark magic. But Stephanie did not give up and continued to recite the spell. Stephanie thought she had defeated the witch and the devil, but she did not realize that in her attempt to defeat them, she had unleashed an even more terrible curse. The curse quickly spread through the forest, turning everything it touched into a dark and sinister shadow of what it had once been. Plants and trees began to wither, animals writhed in pain, and rivers turned black and pestilent. The curse spread to the village, and soon the villagers began to suffer the effects of the dark magic. Stephanie realized too late what she had unleashed. The curse caught up with her and transformed her into a demonic creature, trapping her forever in the cursed forest. The villagers tried to find a cure for the curse, but in vain. Darkness gripped the village, and soon everyone fell under the curse of the witch and the devil. The legend of the witch and the devil became a forbidden story that no one dared to tell. The forest became a place of terror, and the villagers lived in darkness and despair forever. Stephanie became a dark memory, an echo of the curse she had unleashed. Her bravery and determination were in vain, and the curse lived on in the forest, waiting for its next victim. Our second story is entitled, A Witch Stalks Me. I was lying on my bed, trying to fall asleep after a long day of work, when I started to hear a strange noise outside my window. At first I thought it was just the wind, but the sound became louder and more persistent. I got out of bed and walked to the window to investigate. What I saw took my breath away. On the street just outside my house, there was a dark figure standing there, wearing a black hood and a long white beard. I could feel his gaze locked on me, but I couldn't see his face. I was so frightened that I almost fell to the ground, but then I realized it was a witch. A witch who had come to haunt me. Over the next few days, I saw her more and more frequently, always lurking in the shadows, waiting for her chance to attack me. I realized I had to do something to protect myself. I began to research everything I could about witches and their powers, looking for a way to defeat her. I discovered that her weakness was light, so I started keeping all the lights in my house on at all times. But that wasn't enough. The witch kept prowling around my neighborhood, whispering dark words and casting spells in the night. I couldn't take the tension anymore, so I decided to confront her. I went out into the street one night, armed with a flashlight and a crucifix, ready to fight her. I found her in a dark corner, and without hesitation I shone my flashlight on her. The witch screamed and backed away. Her head fell and I could see her face. She was a wrinkled old woman with glowing eyes and a sinister smile. With her disguise revealed, the witch disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Despite my bravery, the witch did not give up so easily. From that night on, her attacks became more violent and frequent. Every time I left my house, I could feel her eyes stalking me from the shadows. I tried everything I could to get rid of her. I burned incense and incense burners to scare her away, but nothing worked. I even consulted a local shaman for help, but the witch seemed stronger than ever. One day, on my way home from work, I found my house ransacked and trashed. The witch had come in while I was out and smashed everything in her path. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that she was getting closer and closer to me. Then one night, while I was sleeping, I felt a presence in my room. I opened my eyes and saw the witch standing at the foot of my bed, her eyes glowing and her smile evil. Before I could do anything, she reached out her hand and touched my chest. The witch's touch on my chest was colder than ice. A sharp, piercing pain seized my body as her outstretched hand was on me, conjuring her evil spell. I was enveloped in a cloud of dark smoke and suddenly everything went black. I couldn't see anything, but I could sense that something bad was happening. Then I heard a chilling laugh, a laugh that chilled my blood. Finally, the darkness faded and I could see what had happened. My room was destroyed and the furniture was smashed to pieces. The walls were full of dark markings and strange symbols, and the room was filled with smoke and haze. I felt weak and dizzy. My arms and legs were shaking, and it felt like my whole body was melting. I realized that something was wrong with me. The witch had achieved her goal, she had cast her spell on me and succeeded in destroying my life. Since then, I have felt trapped in a kind of eternal nightmare. I can no longer sleep at night and the shadows constantly haunt me. Even during the day, I feel trapped in a dark haze, unable to see the beauty of the world around me. After falling victim to the witch's spell, my life became a constant hell. I felt trapped in an eternal nightmare, unable to find peace or happiness. I knew I had to do something to free myself from her evil influence. Finally, I decided that the best thing for me was to drop everything and get away from the place. I knew I couldn't get rid of the witch if I stayed in the same place, so I packed my things and left without telling anyone where I was going. The sadness of leaving my home and my former life weighed heavy on my heart, but I knew it was the only option. For weeks, I traveled from place to place, trying to find some place where I could feel safe and free from the witch's influence. After fleeing my former home to escape the witch, I thought I had finally found a safe place where I could rebuild my life. I settled into a small house in a quiet village, and little by little, I began to feel comfortable in my new surroundings. But it wasn't long before I realized that the witch had found me again. I began to feel her presence everywhere, and the same feelings of unease and anxiety that I had experienced before began to haunt me again. One night, while I was at home, I heard a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw the dark figure of the witch standing on my porch. My heart stopped in my chest, and I knew the time had come to confront her. I opened the door and the witch entered my house without even waiting for an invitation. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to survive, so I quickly grabbed one of the blades I kept under my pillow and pointed it at her. The witch laughed, as if she knew I didn't stand a chance against her. But despite my fear, I was not willing to give up without a fight. With all the strength I could muster, I lunged toward her with the blade in my hand. The crash was intense, and I fell to the ground with a loud thud. When I regained consciousness, I saw the witch standing over me, an evil grin on her face. "You fell into my trap again," she said, before casting another spell on me. This time, the spell was stronger than ever, and I felt my body fade into darkness. I don't know how long it took before I woke up again, but I knew that my life had changed forever. The witch had found me again, and this time, there was no escape. I woke up in the dark, dazed and confused. It took me a moment to realize that I was in a completely different place, surrounded by shadows and eerie murmurs. I soon knew that I was in the witch's lair, and that there was no escape. The witch was sitting in a chair next to me, watching me with a smirk on her face. "You have fallen into my trap once again," she said with an evil laugh. "Now you are mine forever." But despite his threat, I wasn't going to give up so easily. I knew I had to do something to free myself from her evil influence. In an act of desperation, I began to recite all the prayers I remembered from my childhood. I didn't know if that would work, but I felt I had to try. Suddenly, the room was filled with a blinding light, and I felt a divine presence in the room. I looked toward the door and saw a priest standing there, holding a crucifix in his hand. "Get out of here, demon!" the priest shouted, and the witch screamed in pain as she writhed on the floor. The priest took me by the hand and helped me to my feet. He led me out of the witch's lair and into the safety of his church. There, the priest performed an exorcism on me to free me from the witch's influence. It was a painful and frightening process, but I finally felt free again. After all I had been through, I decided to stay near the church and work as a volunteer. I felt grateful for the priest's help and wanted to give something back to the community. Even though the witch was still out there, I knew I had the power to confront her with the priest's help. I felt stronger than ever, and I knew that no matter what happened, I would never fall into her trap again. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive notification of our next stories. See you soon.